share with everyone so those who can't join us can watch this video and learn just as much. So I met Beth's team when I was in Honolulu, and we connected. And I said, "Gosh, our community would love to learn a little bit more about this bar." So she was so generous and sent us a huge box of the bars that will be shared next week at the Christmas party. And we were lucky enough to have this kind of presentation so we can learn a little bit more about her bars. So there you go, Beth. You can take away.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you very much. So I can just give a little bit more of my background. I am a food scientist by training. So I got my degree in food science, and then I worked in the large food companies, so Kraft, Wrigley, and Mars for 20 plus years in their research and development, developing new products, which was wonderful, and I loved it. But as time went on, I realized that we weren't utilizing the most effective and healthy ingredients. And so I tried to, as I got more senior in my career, push more health and wellness initiatives. And at the end, I was working for a candy company. So it didn't really jive with what they wanted to do. And so I left. And I decided that I wanted to focus on fiber because fiber has such a great impact on your gut, which we'll get into. And then I came across a couple scientific studies around fiber and Parkinson's in particular. I was like, wow, this is really cool. And there's a lot that you can do here. And so that's when I developed our bar. So we'll get into that. What I thought might be helpful was a little bit of background at the beginning. So if you guys are up for it, I'm going to do a little science talk for you all.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll start off. This is okay. So talk about the microbiome and the brain health connection, the role of inflammation, which I don't think is talked about enough in Parkinson's, nutrition, and then we've got time for a Q&A. We're a small group, so if you have any questions as I'm going through this, please don't hesitate to speak up. And I'm sure this is not new to you guys, but neurological diseases are skyrocketing. So 1 in 3 people will develop a neurological condition in their life, which is crazy. And neurological diseases have actually surpassed cardiovascular and cancer as the leading cause of disability globally.
Wow.
Which is crazy. And I don't think a lot of people know that. And just with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, it costs $436 billion to the US for healthcare for these conditions. And that's in 2025. So it's only going to continue to grow. What's most alarming is that up to 70% of people with a neurological condition have GI issues, often 10 to 20 years before we're diagnosed with the condition. And this kills me because this is where we need to really raise awareness that your gut can be giving you signals before other parts of your body. So the more we can spread the word around gut health and the impact that it can have on overall health, the better.
Wow.
I think I've been getting the warning signs.
Have you for many years?
I'm looking at the warning signs start in the gut. So
She said for many years.
for about I'd say it's been going on for about a year.
Oh, I would say maybe 10 years.
That sounds about right. Well, good. We can tell you what to do about it. Okay, so the microbiome. How many of you have heard of the microbiome? Okay, we got one. So the microbiome is the millions of bacteria and viruses and parasites in your body all around. And the majority of them are housed in your gut. So there are trillions of bacteria in your gut currently, and there's all different kinds. And I like to think about your gut microbiome as a forest. So the picture on the left is a very lush forest. There's different kinds of vegetation, animals, the deer can feed there. they all work together in a symbiotic relationship. When the forest doesn't get the food that it needs, the sun or the rain, it starts to die. And then it looks like the picture on the right. This is called dysbiosis, or an imbalance in your gut bacteria. And this is kind of the picture in my mind. It's very desolate. Things as in the right bacteria can't grow. It leaves it very susceptible to external forces. So wind or rain, flooding could happen in something like this, whereas harder to happen in a lush forest. And that's kind of how I think about our gut microbiome. There's this constant war between the bacteria, the good and the bad bacteria. And we want to feed the good bacteria so that they grow into this lush forest. And I will get into how we do that. So the why is that so important to have a healthy microbiome? There's a lot of research happening in this space. And I spoke about the one study that got me interested in Parkinson's in particular. But the main link and the reason why this gut dysbiosis has such a strong impact in neurological conditions is because of something we call the gut-brain axis. And that's a connection, direct connection via a big nerve called the vagus nerve from your brain to your gut. And I like this picture because it actually shows this yellow line is the vagus nerve. And it shows how those nerve endings actually intertwine with the gut lining cells. So the example that I like to make is I have a 16-year-old son. He just got his driver's license. Every time he takes his key and starts to get into the car and then peel out of the driveway, I feel it in my stomach. And I have this, my brain is telling me that something bad could happen. And that's how I feel in my stomach.
Oh.
So we've all experienced those, right? If you're stressed, you can feel it in your stomach. If you have a worry or fears, sometimes your GI system is out of whack, and vice versa. If your gut microbiome isn't isn't healthy, as in that lush forest, your brain starts to feel it. And you can feel, actually, there's a lot of studies linking depression, anxiety with a dysbiotic gut microbiome. So it's a bi-directional communication between your brain and your gut that's constantly talking that we don't have any control over. And that's why having a healthy gut environment is so important for GI issues, so constipation, going to the bathroom regularly, cancers, but also for your brain. So it constantly sends signals to how your brain should be working, whether there's toxins or inflammation markers linking to your brain. That's all through the vagus nerve. There are a couple other mechanisms as well, but for the focus of this conversation, that's the most important. And this link has been purported to have a strong impact on Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, depression and stress, anxiety, as we talk about, and neurodevelopmental disorders such as ADHD. So this gut dysbiosis is really something that everyone, those with Parkinson's and all of us, really want to pay attention to. So this microbiome then, as we eat our food, so the gentleman on the left shows this esophagus leading to the stomach and the gut. The role of the gut microbiome is to really break down our food that we eat, the fibers that we eat, and produce that into short chain fatty acids. So these short chain fatty acids are what I was talking about earlier, are these magical molecules. They're really critical in signaling your body and your immune cells to do different things. So they strengthen the gut barrier lining. And I've got another picture that I'll get into in a little bit more detail. They affect nutrient absorption. They can impact their immune response. So this pro-inflammatory molecules, this gut, we're learning, and the cells in your lining impact all sorts of different signals within your body. And those signals actually go to every organ. So your brain, your heart, your liver, kidneys, it all talks. And these short chain fatty acids play a big role in that communication. And this is, you can quiz your friends later around what short chain fatty acids are, but there's three main ones. And there's a lot of discussion these days around butyrate, acetate, and propionate. We'll get to one more level of depth. So when we talk about that gut lining, so the picture here shows your gut. And this is, when I say gut, it's primarily the large intestine. So this big pink line that extends around the outside of your gut, that part is really the most prolific in the bacteria. And that's where you actually break down fibers into those short chain fatty acids. This gut lining actually declines as we age, which is why it's even more important to pay attention to what we eat and exercise and stress. So age, stress, diet, environmental toxins all impact that strength of your lining of your gut. So this is the last really scientific picture, I promise. But I love this because this is a cross section of your gut. And those little pink epithelial cells in the middle are the one layer of cells that separates, can you see my cursor here? That separates the top part. So this top is where your food is digested. So that's the inside of your colon. And are surrounding that is all of these epithelial cells. And these little brown and yellow markers are the bacteria. And that's where you want more good bacteria than bad bacteria. And this picture on the left is what we term a symbiotic state. So everything looks great. Your good bacteria are producing these short chain fatty acids. I use my fingers as epithelial cells. It makes it easy to communicate. And I'm Italian because I talk with my hands. These epithelial cells are nice and tight together. That allows them to let the proper chemicals through to your bloodstream, which is on the bottom here, and properly affect your immune system. So all of that signaling that I was talking about works in tandem. Everything looks great. But as we age and or are exposed to toxins like paraquat or TCE, as in Parkinson's, if our gut isn't strong, like on the left, it starts to open up. And the bacteria then allow this opening, so the junctions are not as tight. And as you can see here, this bacteria starts to make its way through these epithelial cells into your bloodstream, causing inflammation or an inflammatory response. And you can see here, this blue line is the mucus in your gut. It's thin. It's not there and protecting those cells. There's a lot of open spaces. So again, allowing for bad bacteria and toxins to get into your bloodstream and affect that vagus nerve that we spoke about. The key thing through all of this is really the inflammatory response. So this day and age, there's a lot of focus on inflammation and how inflammation can impact a lot of chronic diseases like stroke, but cardiovascular disease, in our case, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. And your immune system, so this is essentially your immune system represented on the bottom here, it is there for a purpose, right? So if you get a cut on your hand and it's got some germs around it, your immune system and fights, goes to it, it turns a little red and puffy. That's an inflammatory response that is supposed to be there to stop the spread of this infection, which is great. But over time, if you have constant infections, your body's constantly working to correct that, and it gets tired. And that's where this chronic inflammatory response happens. Your body, from a biological standpoint, gets tired, and it affects the cellular response of everything we do. So it contributes to fatigue, neurological conditions. That's when things start to break down from a cardiovascular disease standpoint. So it's not where we want to be. And the problem is, we don't often feel this or know about this inflammation or problems in our gut. So the other, I guess, element from a Parkinson's standpoint is the one place we do feel inflammation is in our joints. So it's harder to get up, stand up in the morning in your knees. Sometimes you can't use your hands, hold the toothbrush as well as you used to be able to. Things like that are impacted by inflammation. But the big thing that's impacted is your brain. And I'm going to get into that. Actually, let's do that now. So we just spoke, there's a lot on this slide, but the conference that Anne and I were at, there was a speaker there, Dr. Tansey, who made the direct link between this gut inflammation that we were talking about and neurodegeneration. So at a very high level, that leaky gut state, dysbiotic state of the gut bacteria, leads to an inflammatory response. And actually, for Parkinson's, it's been purported that alpha-synuclein actually starts to misfold in an inflamed gut environment. And it's that misfolding that then allows it to start to aggregate and cause the alpha-synuclein clumps that are in the brain, affecting the dopamine producing brain cells. So if we can stop that alpha-synuclein from misfolding, your body can actually process it much better and excrete it the way it's supposed to. But when it's in this chronic inflamed state, it's not able to process it. And that's where everything starts to break down. And that's where this constipation or GI symptoms, very early, 10 to 20 years in advance of a disease, are where there's a lot of research happening, because we want to be able to stop and prevent this disease rather than just treat the symptoms. And that's really the whole reason we're doing this. So this just shows the link between that systemic inflammation allows a decrease, increased permeability in the blood-brain barrier down here. That leads to neuroinflammation and then neurodegeneration or brain cell death. So the key thing here is, if we can reduce inflammation in the gut, we can reduce inflammation in the brain. And that helps keep our brains healthy for much longer. Questions? I'll pause there. This is a lot. No? Okay. So the big question is, what do we do about this, right? Now that we know this is here, how do we help it? The answer is, there's a few things we can do. And the big ones are, first one is exercise, which Anne is so eloquently displaying for us this morning. And I know there's a lot of kind of boxing and classes available for all of you, which is wonderful. So that's step one. Second one is stress. Stress is a key component in all of this. So making sure to reduce that is a good thing. And diet is the third. And that's really where I can help the most. So if we talk about diet, there's typically two recommendations that neurologists provide, and it's the Mediterranean or the MIND diet. The Mediterranean is very focused on, as you can see here on the bottom, healthy fats, so olive oils, whole grain breads, lots and lots of leafy greens, fruits and vegetables, and then salmon, chia seeds, nuts and seeds here for their high omega-3 content, a little less of the poultry and the dairy, and then even less of the sugary, non-nutrient dense sweets. So the way to read this chart is really the bottom piece you want to have more of. So much higher proportion of fruits and vegetables, high omega-3, salmon, olive oil, whole grains. And then I love this one because it's got exercise and connection on the bottom. That's kind of the fundamental piece. If you think about those in the Mediterranean, they really do sit down and enjoy their meals and talk with others. And that has a lot to do with stress and how your body absorbs the food and reacts with it. The only real difference between the MIND and the Mediterranean, the MIND diet is a little bit more focused on leafy greens and blueberries, high berries, high polyphenol type foods. They're both great. They both have been shown through cohort studies to actually reduce the risk of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. But I think more importantly, there have been studies showing that actually when they track those folks with Parkinson's over many years, the folks that have the strongest adherence to this type of a diet actually show the least progression of the disease. So when you compared folks who followed this diet to those that didn't, there was actually a difference of 17 years in the age of onset for Parkinson's, which is crazy. So it just goes to show we all can really impact our life course if we start early and really adhere to a higher fruits and vegetables, less of the standard American diet. Okay, we will get to the bars. So this is the example, because I am in this world and I still struggle with how do I work with and follow the Mediterranean diet. The easiest way to think about it is with your plate. So the picture on the left shows half of your plate is really fruits and vegetables. I like this picture because it shows the distinction. Half of your plate, a quarter of your plate is lean proteins, so eggs, beans, there's steak here, chicken, salmon, and then a quarter of it is your starchy vegetables or whole grains. So whole grain pasta, wild rice, whole grain bread. This is kind of a nice way to think about it. And then the picture on the right is another example. So a nice mixed vegetable salad and then salmon. So this is kind of.
Pardon me, it's Eileen Donnelly. Can I make a comment or ask a question at this point in time? As you talk about whole grain bread, it's been my observation that when we buy bread and we look for high fiber bread, whole grain doesn't necessarily provide high fiber.
You're correct. Because if you take a very large brand of bread, so I don't want to pick on anybody particular, but our standard American diet tends to be very processed. So in creating these large quantities, lower priced foods, we strip out all the nutrients that's in it because we want to increase shelf life. So the goal of these food companies is to keep that product on the shelf as long as possible, makes everybody happy, they make more money, and life is good. The problem is you strip those products with proper nutrients. And Eileen, I think that's what you're seeing on the shelf. So there are breads out there that are less processed and have more whole grain ingredients in them. Um, like Dave's Killer Bread is one that I find to be a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Sourdough bread is
Mm-hmm.
a very good choice too, because that removes more of the gluten than traditional breads in the market.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that's why.
It's just very confusing, as you're stressing the whole grain. I'm just struck with, I mean, while we're away, my sister bought us 2 loaves of whole grain bread. It's all over the wrapper, very pricey. But when you look at the fiber in particular, which is why I would eat bread,
Yeah.
it's less than one, or one. So
Yeah.
it's a very deceiving area if you're looking to increase fiber, whole
Yeah. So
grain.
it's a great point. How I would think about it is whole grain bread is better than white bread. So you're doing a better job. If you want to eat bread, choose the whole grain type. The best place to get your fiber is really fruits and vegetables and seeds and nuts. So I have a saying for fiber consumption. It's called the BGBGs. You know, the Bee Gees from the
Oh yeah,
60s
we
and
know the
70s.
BG.
All right. So beans and greens, BG, BG, berries, seeds. No, I missed a G. Beans, greens, berries, grains, whole grains, and then seeds and nuts. That's the best way. So really, beans, greens, berries, seeds, and nuts. Those are the best fiber sources. So I typically don't really think about bread in the US as a great source of fiber. Whole grains or fruits and vegetables, seeds and nuts, beans, much better sources of fiber.
Thank you.
Good question. Um, all right, we talked about that. This just reiterates the fact that all of these diets focus on fruits and vegetables and monounsaturated fats, so healthy fats for our brain. And fat is critical for our brain cells and neurons to work. But we want the olive oil, fatty fish, omega-3 foods.
I have a question, if I may.
Yeah.
Um, so, as you can guess, I'm rather late in life, realizing my uh, conditions have probably should have been changed years ago. But how much does changing at this point correct all the bad I've done?
The Mike, you're not the only one. It's all of us. And the good news is, from a diet and a microbiome standpoint, you can absolutely change it. And it does. And studies have shown, although not as much as I would like to see, but these cohort, meaning they take all of the research studies that have been done on the Mediterranean or the Main diet and pulled them together and analyzed them. It has demonstrated that there is a delay in the disease progression by changing your diet. So you can, and everybody's individual, so I can't give you an exact, if you do this, this will happen. But the research, probably 10 years, you can make a difference if you exercise right, have a good lifestyle, and change your eating habits now. So that microbiome slide, you can, I didn't touch this, but you can change this leaky gut to be more in a symbiotic state. And then what that does is that changes all of the pro-inflammatory markers in your cells and body, brain. And so that you're reducing that inflammation in your brain and delaying the disease progression. So that's the good news. You can do this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And delaying that inflammation would also pertain to if you had arthritis, something like that. It's inflammation is inflammation, I guess. So
It is. So there's things called autoimmune diseases, right? Where your immune system is essentially working against you. It's because of this chronic inflammation. So if you can tamper down that inflammation, that autoimmune disease should reduce. Now, it depends on how it shows up and how long you've had it and how reversible things are. But in general, we can reverse these things. There's something actually how I got started in all of this. There's a Whole30 diet that's out there as well. It's very similar to the Mediterranean diet. I did it, and actually I noticed a dramatic change in my mood, how I was feeling. Um, I was having, I actually have some arthritic conditions genetically, but my gut felt better. I had more energy. My brain, my mood was the big thing that I noticed. I'm like, wow, just by changing what I eat, I was dramatically in a different state. So it's possible. And the unfortunate thing is, in other parts of the world, that's eating like that is common. But in the US, we've processed out a lot of those good nutrients, which is bad. And we've made fast food, white bread, all of that cereal very common in the US. I will see a trend shifting back towards more natural foods, I think, which is why I created these NeuroFiber bars. And as we get into this, how are we doing on time? So we did a clinical trial on those with Parkinson's, and we had 18 people with Parkinson's take these bars, 1 bar a day for 4 weeks. We demonstrated that there was a significant reduction in intestinal inflammation. So just 1 bar a day of these healthy, meaning whole food bars and high fiber bars, was able to reverse that dysbiotic state and decrease inflammation, which is incredible. We showed that 75% of the people with constipation actually had symptom relief during these 4 weeks. So it helps with constipation. And then the benefit of fiber is it actually helps with cholesterol reduction. So overall cholesterol, was reduced, and LDL, or the bad cholesterol, was also significantly reduced. So this was still an open label 4-week study with 18 people. We want to do more, and we have a couple studies in IRB at the moment to have a larger 100-person study for 3 months. But this is pretty amazing for this short period of time and just 1 bar a day. The neat thing is, as here are just 2 different examples of people. So 2 different people. The one on the left, Joel, took this bar for about 5 months. He's still taking it, but his inflammation markers were up at 259, was actually where he started. After 5 months of taking these bars, he's now in a healthy 15 was the level that came out, micrograms per gram for fecal calprotectin, the measure of intestinal inflammation, which is crazy. And he felt better. So he was having back issues. He's much more mobile now. He's in a much better state. Second one, this is Jack's. He started the bar for 3 months. It went up a little as we measured. Overall, after 3 months, went down. And then we had him stop the bars to test ourselves. And then we checked again, and his inflammation rose after not consuming the bars. So, and I'm not saying these bars are magical. It's just a high concentration of fiber every day truly makes an impact in your inflammation markers. So that's why we like these bars. This next study it was an ex vivo test, and we tested the bars, or NeuroFiber bars, against Metamucil. So psyllium husk is Metamucil, and polyethylene glycol is Miralax, 2 common over-the-counter products for constipation. Miralax doesn't help your gut at all. And this is kind of one of the big messages I want to get
Oh, boo.
through. Miralax is wonderful because it works, right? It helps you go to the
Oh,
bathroom.
oh,
The bad part is because it's a actually it's a synthetic polymer, so it's just like a wax that absorbs water into your stool and helps you go, but it doesn't do anything for the microbiome, which is unfortunate because, as we've just learned, that's what we need to help us from an inflammation response. So Miralax is kind of a downward spiral because then you're not feeding the bugs as you need to, and your GI system gets out of whack. Psyllium husk or Metamucil is a little bit better. It does help grow those short chain fatty acids, just like we want it to. But it's only one fiber. And we know the more diverse your fiber intake, the more diverse your microbiome, and the higher level of short chain fatty acids, and the better your gut system works. So, NeuroFiber bars have 14 different sources of fiber helping that short chain fatty acid. And then we asked people to fill out questionnaires too. So at the beginning and at the end, as I said, 75 reported constipation improvement, 62.5% reported improvements in sleep, because a lot of your hormones, neurotransmitters, are actually produced in the gut. So I've only kind of spoken about the microbiome, but there's a lot of other systems that are impacted by your gut. And then we actually had them fill out the UPDRS chart. Are you guys familiar with the MDS UPDRS scoring?
No.
No. So when you go to see your neurologist, movement disorder specialist, they will either use the H&Y Hoehn-Yahr test or the UPDRS and evaluate you on your symptoms. And when you're in seeing the doctor, they'll evaluate your motor symptoms and give you a score. And they use that to track your progression of the disease over time. There's part one, there's 4 parts to the study, but part 1 and 2 are self-evaluations. And so we had the participants fill out this form before and after. And we showed an improvement or a lower score in 87.5% of these folks, which is pretty incredible. So these things are like constipation, sleep, getting yourself dressed in the morning, going to the bathroom, speech. There's a few other ones. Mood, so anxiety, depression are also measures in here. So it helps from a quality of life standpoint, along with those biomarkers that we showed before, which is pretty incredible. And then for me at the end, it's, how does everybody feel, right? Do you feel better as a result? And 9 times out of 10, we all know if you are not constipated, you feel better, period, in the short term. In the long term, it actually helps from a less inflammation, less neuroinflammation standpoint. So you're helping yourself in 2 ways. And then really the last chart here is, this shows, we talked about constipation showing up to 20 years in advance of a Parkinson's diagnosis. So this line in the middle is when you're actually diagnosed. Constipation is one prodromal or pre-symptom, pre-disease symptom. RBD is a REM, sleep behavior disorder disease. So sleep disruption patterns are 10 years around showed up before. Then you get into kind of some more mental depression. Then you start to see pain, fatigue, MCI, mild cognitive impairment, rigidity, tremor, fluctuations. So the more we can share with our friends and family around the potential to stop this, the better off we're all going to be in the long run. And that's why the bars are a good vehicle, but really it's, if everybody could follow the Mediterranean diet, we wouldn't need the bars, and that would be lovely. It's really hard to do. And so these bars are a convenient, kind of easy way to know you're getting a really fairly sophisticated fiber blend to help with that diversity and the inflammation reduction. So just in summary, that gut and the brain communicate by themselves daily, constantly. And the more we can feed ourselves the good fibers, the better that connection is going to be. This dysbiosis, or our disturbed microbiome, can be reversed by following a healthier Mediterranean plant, fruits, and vegetable high omega-3 diet. And when we do that, less dysbiosis leads to less inflammation in your gut and less neuroinflammation. So if you take away anything, go out and eat your fruits and vegetables. And we really can impact our disease course progression.
Medications or
Great, Beth, this was so informative. Thank you so much. So I know that people might be interested in getting the bars. And while you were looking, I found them on Amazon.
Fabulous.
So that's exciting. So what are other ways that people can buy them?
Through our website. So it's just neurofiberhealth.com.
Okay.
And the website also has a lot of this science to read too, if you're interested in learning more about this. We're having a little bit of a supply issue at the moment. We are out of two of the flavors, two of the boxes on our current website. So I would probably recommend Amazon at the moment is the easiest way to get it. We're not in retail yet. We really want to focus more on the online distribution to begin with.
Yeah.
I went online to your website and I bought the sample pack that
Perfect.
Coming on Tuesday.
Oh, good.
Oh, there you go.
You're so efficient. Yes, we do. That's the benefit of the website. So there is a trial pack, just a 7-day. It's only 7 days, and we really encourage everybody to start with half a bar a day.
I read
because
that.
if you are constipated, like many of us are, and you take a lot of fiber all at once, your body's not ready for it. So you need to essentially prime your microbiome to be able to eat those fibers. So low and slow is the key with consuming more fiber. So start with lower amounts and be steadily increasing them over time, and your body can adjust appropriately.
Is there any ingredient that would cause an interaction with any medications or chemotherapy?
Not that we've learned. No, there's not. It's all whole food, natural ingredients. Yeah.
Minimum.
Do you have a specific time of day, Beth, that you recommend them taking them?
Great question. No, we don't. That's the benefit of whenever they're intentionally designed to be lower in protein because protein interacts with the carbidopa levodopa medication. So you can have them closer to the medicine and be okay, which is great. So that gives you the flexibility.
But should be closer. You should take them closer to the medicine.
No, you don't. No, you don't have to. You just, some people, the medicine upsets some people's stomach. And so having a little bit of food near when they consume the medicine helps them actually. So what we wanted to do is not make it a hassle to have to take these bars. So you can consume them closer to when you take the medication and it doesn't impact anything.
So say that the protein, it reacts, if you take protein close to the time you take your dopa.
Yeah, you got it. Yep.
Yeah, that it won't work. The medicine won't work.
Right.
So that's why I asked.
Yeah, it's a great question. And so that's why we developed them to be lower in protein so that it doesn't interact with the medicine.
How processed are your bars?
Pardon me?
How much processing does the bar have go through?
Not much. That was my big thing. So do you guys know the KitchenAid mixers?
Yes.
They make Hobart mixers in big batch form, and that's how they're made. So literally we take the ingredients and mix them up and then put them into a former that formed like a roll that forms them into that bar. So that's it. So they're very minimally processed.
Great.
Yeah, Mike, yesterday when I broke them up and handed them out to people in the clinic, there were people that were getting like chunks of cherries, right? So yeah, they're delicious in that way.
Yep. Spent a
And
lot
they're
of time
kind of softer, right? So they're not like a hard crunch. They're a little bit softer.
Mhm. Yes, exactly.
But they are more fiber than the protein.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So a lot of the bars out there were particularly
Protein.
the protein bars, right? Which is
Yeah.
great for a lot of people when you need a hearty snack, or need more protein. But from a carbidopa levodopa standpoint, it makes it hard and not portable. So these are much more convenient. And I think you'll see in the food industry, there's going to be a lot more fiber bars coming out, if I had to guess, because the role of fiber and the importance of it is growing in the mass kind of awareness.
Mm.
Yeah. So we're open to new flavors too. We only have 2 at the moment, and I need to develop another one. So you can come to me if you have any flavor desires. Peanut butter and chocolate is one, and kind of a blueberry crumble is another
Or
flavor.
like an apple cinnamon or something like that.
Yes, that would be good.
Hmm.
Great questions.
Any other questions, y'all?
Very, very, very informative. Very informative. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
You're very welcome. Well, thanks for letting me give the spiel, and hopefully you can share with your friends and family the value of fiber.
I'm not sharing my bars.
I'm not sure.
Ah, ah.
I'll
Yeah.
tell them about them.
You can try more at your party next week, right?
Yeah, right.
Give
Yeah.
them as Christmas gifts.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Stocking stuffer.